yeah, I gave it a lot of thought, and I decided that, and I had an assistant coach who was ready to take over, and so I decided to retire from coaching the Martlets. McGill kept me on as a full-time staff for the following year, and I was mentoring all the coaches at McGill, not just hockey, but all the coaches for a year full-time. And then I started coaching in the Women's Pro League, which was the PHF back then. So I coached then that team for a year. Then that league, folded and the PWHL started. And I basically decided I was going to retire for the second time. And then our men's coach came to me, a fellow who I'd known since he started at McGill in 2004. And I had been following his career and mentoring him for years. He came to me and said, would I be interested in coming on as an assistant coach with the guys? And I thought about it for a little bit. And, honestly, my wife, after I retired, I'd been retired for about 2 weeks, and she couldn't remember why she wanted me to retire. So she encouraged me to take the job. So I did. That's how I started. So I didn't have any preconceived idea of getting involved with the guys team. It's the way it worked out, and it was an easy transition from coaching the Martlets all those years and being close to the men's team anyway. I knew all the players and the coaches and all that, so it was an easy transition, and I've really enjoyed it. It's been great.
Peter, how long ago was that?
That was so I'm in my third year coaching with the guys. Yeah, in my third year coaching with the guys.
Okay.
So it's been 5 years since I kind of retired from the Martlets, and I did the mentorship for a year, and then I coached the PHF for a year, and now 3 years with the men.
Peter, you have a question.
Yeah, Peter, when were you with the women with McGill? When were you coaching them?
I started in 70, excuse me, in 98. I think it was 98 to 2009. So I coached for 20, span of 21 years with the Martlets.
Okay, we had a girl here from Connecticut that I think she was a goaltender up there, Christine Bork, who was
Yep,
who was up
yep,
there. You know that
yep.
name or not? But she
Yeah,
was
that's a long time ago, but
that's
yeah,
yeah. Well, I coached her in high school hockey back in the
yeah,
day,
yeah.
and
That would have been around 2000, 2001
yeah,
that she
yeah,
played. Yep, she was a backup goaltender for us. Yeah, I remember her. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
And then
Yeah.
my son actually went to Stansted College, and he had
Oh,
talked.
nice.
Yeah, he
Oh,
had talked
nice.
about a coach at McGill too. So it's funny that's such a small world.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hockey, yeah, it brings us all together, which is great.
Yeah, it sure does.
Yeah, no, super, super. Yeah.
Peter, I've got so many different questions I could ask you based on everything I've been doing and trying to do, keeping growing the game, particularly the female game.
Yep.
And you've been in both. Have you coached men's sports before?
Yeah, yes, I did. So, I mean, just real brief background. I did my phys ed degree at McGill, and when I graduated, I actually started working for the Department of Athletics and Physical Education. When I graduated, I was teaching phys ed courses, running intramurals, and I also coached a number of sports. When I started at McGill, I was coaching tennis and squash and golf, and then I was working as a skills coach. Hockey was always my passion and my background, and I was a skills coach out in the community as well. So yeah, I did coach the guys, but at a much lower level than the university hockey, that's for sure. Minor hockey.
Well, I'm going to get right to the nuts and bolts. Moving to men's, what was the biggest adjustment?
I always joke about this. Is biggest adjustment was that now I don't have to knock on the door or flick the lights before I go into the locker room, as I did with the girls. Um, but all kidding aside, honestly, Wally, the biggest adjustment for me was sort of transitioning become from being a head coach for all those years. I mean, I've been a head coach for 30 years, and then being an assistant coach. That was an adjustment. certainly. But I think what everybody wants to hear is what's the big difference between coaching females and coaching males? Um, I coach them honestly. I coach them all the same, to be honest with you. I I really try and look at, I coach them one at a time. I look at each individual player, figure out what they need to be successful and to improve and, have a valuable experience here at McGill. That's basically what I looked at. And every player is different. Um, I really tried to ignore any kind of gender differences. I just looked at individual players' differences. I mean, I've heard all the stereotypes and I just chose to kind of ignore them and move forward, figure out what each player needs and try and provide those needs as best I could. And that's what I continue to do with the guys. I did that with the women's team and I continue to do that with the guys. Well, I've heard so much, and the 14 differences between coaching men and women, and there's a lot of gender stuff out there, and I just chose to try and create a culture that was, based on hard work and process and striving for success, and whether it was guys or girls, that's what I tried to do. Kind of bland, I guess, kind of beige, really. I think some people are looking for, you know, uh,
Well,
some big
Peter,
differences.
I'm
I
not
don't
looking
know.
for the textbook answer. I know Tim Bothwell, yourself. Tim's done formal things on those differences, kind of thing, and uh, one of his lines was, "Guys have to win to have fun. Girls have to have fun before they can win." And that's, I think there's I work in female hockey coaching, mentoring primarily U13 girls. And ever since I started coaching women, I found they want to know why and they ask questions. They're curious. You can't just push something on them like was done to us as male players. So going over to the female side, communication's the same, nothing's different. Uh, they're open to information. I think young people today on the boys' side are much more coachable than back in our day, uh, but it's a different mindset. So, does that
Yeah,
make any sense
I,
to you?
I just, yeah. I mean, again, Wally, I've heard that a lot that the girls want to know why and the guys want to know how. I've heard that. I mean, I'm a guy. I want to know why. I coach a lot of guys who want to know why. Coached a lot of girls who didn't really care about the why, just wanted to know how. So I just find that it's really like I'm not blind to the fact that there are probably gender differences, but I'm blind to the fact that my approach was always to when I looked at the team, I didn't look at it as a group of women. I looked at it as a group of individuals who each one needed things that were different. Again, as I said before, I just tried to coach them one at a time, and that's the way I looked at it. Another one is that the girls can be more emotional. I coach some real emotional guys, to be honest with you. And it just, again, I think that if we bring stereotypes into it, it can be really limiting. So I just try to really avoid those stereotypes. And again, as I said before, I just tried to create a culture that was based on hard work and process, as I said. And it wasn't a women's culture or a men's culture or a French culture or an English culture. It was just a culture that was based on, it was a values-based culture that I really tried to implement. And it took a while with the women's team. When I inherited that team, it had been a club level sport at McGill for years and years with volunteer coaches. And McGill, the athletics department, did a review of all their varsity sports and decided that women's hockey was an up and comer, and some of that was based on the Olympics and from '98, and um, so they decided to put eggs in the basket of women's hockey. And our athletic director knew that I was coaching. I had been coaching out in the community, and he asked me if I would take over the women's program. And he probably thought that I was going to do it for a year or two. I probably thought that I was going to do it for a year or two, and I ended up doing it for 20 years. But the team that I inherited was a club level team with club level sports and a club level mentality. And I had to go out and recruit the kind of players who I felt would fit into the culture that I was trying to establish at McGill. And that's basically what happened. I remember after the first year, went out, recruited 11 new players. But not all of those players made it to their full 4 or 5 year career. They all graduated from McGill, but not all of them made it because I kept on trying to, find players who would fit in, and some of them did, and some of them didn't, and we moved on in some cases. So, but one thing I will say, Wally, I will say that it's probably you're right in that certainly there are changes now from the old days when we coached 30, 40 years ago when we were coaching. I think there's a difference across the board, both for the guys and for the girls, to be honest with you. I mean, I think it's fantastic now that the evolution of women's sport and the respect that women's sport gets now seems to me, I don't know how you guys feel, but seems to me that it's really elevated. I'll use the example. We went up the guys team. We went up, played TMU, former Ryerson in Toronto. It was 2 years ago. We went, and Guy Boucher was one of their coaches who was running the power play. He's a McGill grad. I know him, so I asked if we could go and watch the Leafs practice. Went and watched the Leaf practice, and Guy spoke to the team after. It was great. But Haley Wickenheiser was also on the ice. She was skill coach with the Leafs, as you all know. And so I asked Haley, would you come up and speak with the guys? And what I was so impressed with is the guys, like Haley was super. I mean, gave a real nice talk and answered questions. And the guys were just so attentive to what she had to say. And so many of the guys afterwards said to me, how great it was. And I think, that's just sort of indicative of how much respect a female coach is getting in the guys' game, for example. And I think that that's something that's really changed, which I think is fantastic over a number of years. And also, with the PWHL coming along, college players have something to aspire to, a sustainable, good hockey league that they aspire to after their college career. I think, all of that, I think it's really fantastic. Not sure how I got on that tangent, but I did.
It's a good tangent, Peter. Really. Peter, one of the questions is in your former role, head coach, you are loaded with responsibilities, recruiting particularly.
Yeah.
Your role with McGill, you don't worry about things like that. You can just mentor, coach. Is that true?
Yeah, really true, Wally. And at this stage of my career, it's really it's fit in really well. I mean, I'm just so lucky. I get to do all the X's and O's and pre-scouts. I'm on the ice with the guys at practice, get a chance to build a relationship with them. All the good parts. If somebody's late for the bus now, I'm not the guy who has to deal with it, and I appreciate that, to be honest with you. And the recruiting, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, the recruiting, as you all know, at the college level is just exhausting and never ending. And in the guys' game, it's become even more challenging now with the changes in the NCAA rules and transfer rules, and with U Sport and all that. So the fact that I've been able to do all these great things without some of the other responsibilities, if you will, and that's part of the being a head coach, but without those other responsibilities, has been a real breath of fresh air for me, to be honest with you.
Well, Peter, I called you a couple of weeks ago, sort of for a recruitment, trying to get one of the young players in the association I work with to give her some attention to see if anything could be done for her. And you, not working in the female game anymore, you still are connected.
Very
Uh,
much.
and one of the questions you asked me was the academic standards at McGill are pretty high. And the player in question, I think, meets those standards. And um, I really like what you said about the values base of your philosophy and your culture, because so many teams at high levels are totally focused on the outcome.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you can comment to the sort of the, I don't know if dichotomy is the right word, but I don't think you achieve your outcomes if that's all you focus on. That's not how you achieve them.
Yeah. Well, first of all, like to touch on the academic part of it, and again, at McGill, the recruiting is as it is in many schools. I mean, McGill isn't alone in that sense, but um, there is a high academic standard to be able to get into McGill. And when I used to go and recruit for the Martlets, and I'd ask the coach of the team that I'm looking at, like, who are the smart girls? Who are the girls who have really outstanding GPAs and high school averages, because that's where it started. I mean, that was the drop off point when it came to the recruiting. If they didn't have the academic standard, then I didn't have any chance of getting them in. I mean, funny story, but as Wally, as you know, both my daughters played, both good players. And the older one ended up going from an English high school to a French CEGEP, and it was a really high quality French CEGEP Brébeuf. And her marks went down in her first year. And when it came, she recovered eventually, but that first year really killed her. And when she applied to McGill, she wanted to come and play at McGill, and she couldn't get in. And so she went to another school for a year, got her marks up, and eventually came to McGill. But I always used that when I went to recruiting, and somebody would ask me, "Well, can you get her in?" I'd say, "Hey, listen, I couldn't get my own daughter into McGill, so let alone anybody else." So anyway, that's the academic part of it. I think what happens when it comes to recruiting, and we always try to recruit character. I mean, we did our homework. Really like to talk to parents and the players at the same time. Brought players in, learned as much as we could about them, and really looked at the character first. I mean, one of the advantages that we had is, as it went on, we were winning. We had a solid program when it came to being competitive, at a good academic school. Um, so we attracted a lot of players who had an interest in coming. So we had a chance to kind of pick and choose, if you will. I think times have changed now. I think it's even more competitive now for the recruits. And I think one of the mistakes that coaches can make is that they can lose focus on some of that character stuff and just look at, the quality of hockey ability, if you will. And I think that can hurt you a little bit. So we are fortunate in that we attracted a lot of really good players. And it made the program, obviously, it allowed us to perpetuate the program, if you will, in terms, hi, Sammy, in terms of what it is that we wanted to do and where we wanted to be in terms of establishing our culture. Um, Wally, I can't remember whether I answered your question or not.
I can't even remember the question I asked you.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, good. So then I answered it.
I want to welcome Sammy Joe Small. Um, Peter Smith is on, and of course, I believe you both know each other very well.
Yeah.
And Sammy's a big part of that growth and acceptance and appreciation of the female game. And I think, Sammy, returning from the U18s and your new role, that the employment opportunities that are evolving for ex-players is just fantastic to see you in the game. And,
Yeah. Good job, Sammy, at the under 18s. I thought you did a real good job there. I watched a lot of the games, and I'd echo what Wally says. Just good to see you guys, you and Tessa and, everybody else who's involved in the game. I think that's fantastic. So good on you.
Well, thanks. We learned from the best, so I appreciate it. I actually just popped on quickly to see Peter because I'm just kind of between meetings, but it was really fun working the U18s. The US goalie played so well in the
Oh my
final. I think
God. Yeah.
Canada
Yeah.
was the better team, which is good, like leading forward. But I actually leave also for Milan in uh, less than just over a week now. So I'm really
Oh,
excited
good.
to go to the Olympics also there.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that'll be fantastic. That'll be a great experience, that's for sure. I mean, I remember, hopefully the rink is all set to go. I mean, I remember when we went to Torino and when we went to the pre-Olympic tournament in November and we're all sitting in the stands, we were getting like stone dust on our pants and all that because nothing was really finished. But they
Anybody
pulled it
that talks
off.
to me about the arenas not being done, I'm like, oh, it's just the Italian way. I don't know if you even remember, like the cafeteria was not
Oh
done
yeah,
when we arrived.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. No, I'm
so
sure. I'm sure it's going to be fine. But I know there's,
exactly, they'll be
yeah,
done. It'll be fine.
yeah.
It'll be the last second, as
Yeah.
it was with us.
Yeah, no, it'll be a super super experience, that's for sure. Good for you.
Peter, uh,
Well, amazing. Well, thank you guys. I'm just going to listen to what Peter has to say because I know this is all about him and I don't want to take over the conversation. So I'm excited to hear what he has to say and I might just pop off. I have my next meeting at quarter after. So,
No
but good to
worries.
see everyone.
No worries.
Peter, I like your myself. Do you still follow female hockey and like sort of judge it in terms of what they're doing and what could be done, or you just let it go? You're not tied up in the emotions of the growth of the game and seeing it be successful.
No, well, I'll always be involved in the emotional part of the women's game and seeing the growth. Um, obviously I follow the Martlets really closely. I try to catch some of the PWHL games where I can. It's not always that easy. We have a number of players in that league that I've coached, so I really focus in on them, see how they're doing, try and support them where I can. As I said before, I just think it's fantastic that the growth of the game and the opportunity that the women have now, I think is super. And I look at like the team here in Montreal. I mean, they packed the rink here in Montreal. The team is closely followed. Um, there's articles on them in the Montreal Gazette. They're in the news. I think, it's been long overdue. But I also think that there's been some patience involved, and that patience has paid off. And I think that you know, I hope the league doesn't go crazy in terms of expansion, because I think the quality of play is really important. Um, they're rumored that they're going to expand for four more teams. Are there enough players of the quality to go around? I don't know, and I'm not close enough to that to really know. When I watch that league, um, I think one of the challenges is scoring goals 5-on-5, and that ultimately, that'll be a part of it. That's what people want to see. So I think that that's still a challenge. Goaltending, I think, by and large, is really, really good. I think, so anyway, I think bottom line is just the growth of the game is super. And I'm still, really involved in terms of the wanting it to do well. That's for sure. I think my legacy will always be kind of in the female game, if you will, if I have a legacy, that is.
You
You do,
do.
I guess.
You're still growing it. Um, Peter, with all of your experience in the game, how is it changing? How is it changing for the better? What's new? What are the things that back in our day they've taken to another level and we have to be aware of and keep up with?
Yeah, I think that the game technically has really changed a lot. I mean, there's way more now to the X's and O's than there were in the day. I think that the game is much more detailed. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I'm still not 100% you know, convinced on that. But there's a lot of detail now, and I think there's a lot of detail for the players, a lot of detail for the coaches. Um, I think that that can be a good thing, but I think it also has to be taken in context, if you will. The other thing that I think that has changed a great deal in the game is all the skill stuff that goes on. All the individual skill development, the players. Like most of the players who are playing now, I mean, they have, 13-year-olds, they have skills coaches and they're doing separate skill sessions, one-on-ones or two-on-ones or whatever. I think that that's changed a lot. Again, good thing or a bad thing. I watch some of these skill sessions and I kind of think to myself, well, these 13-year-olds are going to be just terrific if they ever come up against a cone in a game and have to deke the cone. Um, so I think the skills department has exploded, if you will. I mean, there are all these skills coaches, and I watch some of the skill sessions, and like good drills and everything, but very little feedback for the individual coach, for the individual player. So I think, the skill stuff can really vary, if you will, in terms of helping the players. Skills are good, but you got to be able to play the game. You got to read and react to what happens on the ice. So I think that that's a thing that's changed. And another thing that's changed, I think, is the fitness level of the players. I think, again, the players are much fitter than they were certainly in Wally's day. But, I think that that's a big change in the game as well. Um, Here in Quebec, and I don't know necessarily what it's like in the other provinces. Um, Here in Quebec, I find that we're at the level where we want a team that's really able to compete at the provincial level, at the national level, if you will. A lot of the eggs go into the basket of creating elite players. Um, we're at this stage where if a player doesn't make midget AAA, then they drop out of the game. I think that that's a shame. I think we give up on players too early, if you will, instead of developing them. There are a lot of late bloomers, both in the men's game and in the women's game. I think it's a shame that we give up on those players. I always use Matthew Darsh as an example. He played, I don't know, 300 and some games in the NHL, and it took him a long time to develop that ability. He wasn't great as a young player. And there are a lot of players who are in that boat, if you will. So I think patience and development is huge. I watched some of the games, U13, U15 games, and they shorten the bench just so darn quickly. And again, I look at Quebec, one player on the guys side. I'm looking on the guys side now. One player from Quebec on the World Juniors. No players on the men's Olympic team from Quebec. So, I think that there's work to be done. Even on the women's side, not a ton of players on the Olympic team on the women's side. How many Quebecers were on the under 18 team? I think there were only three on the under 18 women's team. Sammy, I can't remember exactly, but I remember looking.
Quebec did win the U18 nationals for the first time ever this
Yeah,
year in
yeah,
women's hockey. So that was sort of a good stepping stone.
yeah,
So they had Rosalie Tremblay was the star, and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So they have like they almost have the top echelon of players always, but are missing that like middle gap.
And
Like
that's exactly what I'm kind of alluding to here. But so anyway, I think across the country, though, the development, of the players is huge. Don't give up on kids. Just don't give up on them. Keep them going. keep them involved in the game. I think that's you. We lose too many too early. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but that's kind of the way I see it.
Peter, sorry for interrupting, but we're
No.
talking about, I'm going to talk about the World uh, Junior Championship, and you brought up the idea of skills coaches. All of the players on the highly skilled World Junior team could not play as a team, and that's the problem. This is my opinion here. When I watch and Tom Malloy's on, we have girls playing hockey coming up. They don't know how to play the game.
Mm,
They can toe drag like you can't believe.
yeah.
But do they recognize options? Are they moving the puck? Are they letting the puck do the work? The game at guys and girls, minor hockey elite levels, and even major junior, they're getting double shifted, long shifts. And players aren't used to short 45-second high
Yeah.
execution shifts.
Yeah. I would
You get
agree.
the best of the best together. They got to learn to play together and play without the puck.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. And I mean, that short-term and all that short-term competition is such a challenge to get them to do exactly that. And if they don't have that basis to start off with, then it's even tougher. So yeah, it was a challenge.
My concern is that in the teams that I'm working with, the age levels, and just like you said, they're shortening the bench to win, and they're letting the players go coast to coast to score, to get dominant ice time. Other players sit, don't develop. That's the dilemma, the cultural breakdown of minor hockey that gets kids
Yeah.
out of the game and actually weakens the quality of the game. So that's
Yeah.
just me getting on my pedestal here for a minute to preach. I
Yeah.
don't.
Wally, I second that because we all end up in rec hockey at 18. So
Yeah.
let's prepare everybody to play from 18 to the age of 75 or 85 or however you want to play so
Yeah.
that people can play and nobody's left behind. I love that idea, Peter, that let's not give up on people, but also let's not all expect them to get to the NHL or play there. Like
No.
let's just yeah, make sure that triangle, the base stays really big because there's
Yeah.
such a joy in the game. And yeah, kids quit. I read something the other day that, up until the age of 10, kids in every sport have the opportunity to play. And then after the age of 18, every adult has the opportunity to play and sign up. But for
Yeah.
some reason, between 10 and 18, we want to weed people out of games. It's not just hockey, but
Yeah. Yeah. No,
there's
I agree with
no
that.
reason.
And another thing that I find, again, I'm going to sound like an old timer on this one, but kind of years ago, what would happen is kids would go to the park and just play shinny, and there might be 20 players on the ice and they play and they learn. And I find that there's less of that. And so these skill sessions are often organized by the parents. And so the parents are the movers and shakers when it comes to that. And like I know with my own grandsons, I ask them, so what do you got tomorrow? Oh, I don't know, ask dad. And I get a bit of a kick out of that. And I think one of the things that my son-in-law has done, he's done a good job, is he just organizes shinny games. He rents the ice and he gets a bunch of players, and it's not coaching or skills basis. He's got 22 players and they go out, they divide up the teams and they just go out and play. And he hires a older kid, a referee, and I think that that's a good thing it's not just the skills, it's that ability to go out and play and have fun and enjoy it. And they're all good players, and so I think that that's a good thing as well. I think there could be a bit more of that going on, to be honest with you.
Peter, you're coaching the men's program. I'm assuming that most of the recruits are players that have played major junior hockey with that wanted to play in the NHL, that wanted to get drafted, and maybe didn't accomplish their dream goal. And getting those players recruited, coming back uh, to a college program, to being a student athlete, It's a big adjustment. Have you
So
noticed that at all? The
So one of the things I'll say, Wally, is that like years ago, kind of in my day, college hockey in Canada was kind of sort of the end of the line, and so we got a lot of guys who came in and really didn't really want to train, just kind of wanted to play. When their career was wanted to get a good education, but when their hockey was over, then they were kind of done with it. But I think that that's evolved into something different. Now we get guys who come in, want to get a great education, want to play and get better as players so they can go on and play pro hockey. Almost all of our guys go on and play pro, whether it's in Europe or here in North America. We've got guys all over the place playing. Now, not all of them. Some of them graduate and move on. And they're in business or go on to med school or whatever it is that they want to do. But I do find that the guys coming in now compared to years ago, they come in and they're focused on playing and getting better. They still want to get better as players. So I think that at least in our program, that's what I've seen the evolution of that over the years. I mean, you still get players who come in and it's kind of, I'm going to play here for 4 years and then move on. But most of them want to play pro when they're done. So if they want to play pro, they got to work hard and be successful and put some numbers up. And if they're going to sign a contract with a pro team.
and the same is true for the women now.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is great.
Yeah. Um, just talking about Willie Desjardins when he coached at the University of Calgary,
Yeah.
and he had to. He was sort of an advisor in terms of education for athletes at the U of C, and my daughter was a carded field hockey player and a student athlete there, and he shared with me the frustration he had with his players just being able to maintain a academic standard. And I'm sure you encounter that similarly here, but maybe not as seriously at most schools.
Yeah. Definitely it's a challenge. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, and I look, again, not to be critical, but Um, I really appreciate what we have here, in Canada in university sport. I mean, we have true student athletes here. I got a real kick at it. I saw a clip on Nick Saban, and he was talking that, he wouldn't want to go back and coach college football. That if he went back to coaching, it would probably be in the NFL. I don't know whether that was a cry for a job or not, but he was just saying that in college now, it's just changed so much with the transfer rules and the transfer portal and, the NIL. And it's just, like when I watch, I don't know whether you guys watch the college football championship game. And, I mean, it's an unbelievable story with Indiana going 16-0 and winning the championship. I mean, just really incredible. But they when I watched the game, like half the guys looked like they were 35 years old. And every second guy seemed to be like a transfer student. And I'm thinking to myself, man, it must be so hard to coach in that environment where you have players in and out. I saw another clip of a NCAA basketball coach going, like it's come to, you look up in the stands and, first of all the players have beards and you look up in the stands and the guy's waving to his wife and kids up in the stands. I mean, it's just really changed the landscape down in the NCAA. So again, I'm just really appreciative of what we have here in Canada. Hopefully it doesn't change.
Peter, you use the term student athlete. Um, and I think back in my day, I went to university to play hockey.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I was serious enough about school to get an education, which has paid off for me in my life. But the idea of you're a student athlete is something that I think coaches have to reinforce and appreciate, and parents have to appreciate. Like
Yeah, for sure, Wally.
I'm
I
I'm, talk,
definitely
I'm
definitely
talking
agree.
to many young female players wanting to go to schools, wherever, choosing schools. And I know with the national team, parents would call me and say, where should they go? And my question to them is, well, what do they want to do when they're done hockey?
Exactly.
But they don't think of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they don't think of that. But the education in Canada that you get as a student athlete, I think you're going to get a job more than likely graduating in a Canadian program and not having to be re-educated in an American program. And uh, I'm just so high on the Canadian sports system and want to promote those players out there to not seek the green pastures and the publicity of the NCAA, but that's the way it is.
Yep.
And,
Yep. I
and
think
uh,
I think for parents, well, I mean, I've always said the same thing is that you know, help your child to come to grips with the fact that your career can be short, and you want to end up in a school where you're going to get a real good education, in a city that you're safe in, and that you're going to enjoy, and that play for a coach who cares about you, and play for in a program that is going to help you to get better and reach your potential as a player. And I think that sometimes some of those aspects are left out in terms of the decision making. And I think it's important to look at a holistic approach when it comes to for a young person to make those decisions.
I'm going to share this story about recruitment. Um, and there was a young player in PI that I knew through Alan Andrews and his hockey growth programs.
Hmm.
And she had gone to that prep school we talked about in Quebec. And one of our teams, Scott Rivet of Mount Royal, was looking for players. And out of the blue, he called the coach of that prep school, looking for a certain year and a position of anybody to recruit for his college. And there was a girl, that girl from PEI, and she was being sought after by Div 1 schools and interviewing and doing visits there. And she was also going to come and visit Scott at the CIS school. And in the interview with the NCAA number one school, she mentioned to the coach that she was considering another school in Canada. And the coach said, well, do you want to play in the NFL or the CFL? And that caused her to not go to the NCAA school.
Yeah.
The the when we're getting down to the values things here, what's important, and if
Yeah.
you're focusing on outcomes and thinking, oh, this is better than that, and that's why I'm going to go there, you better look at the big picture and what you're going to get out of the whole experience
Yeah.
wherever you go when you get to be our age and do what you do.
Exactly.
And it's tough to preach that now because it's a sort of a me, do it now. What can you do for me now kind of world? And it's really difficult as teachers, coaches, and parents to stick handle your way through the maze of choices that are in front of you.
Yep. I agree with that, Wally.
Does anybody else have any other questions here? Now, Peter, Hell, I thought was going to join us from Florida, but um, I'm really curious, Peter, in your college experience and being a student athlete guy and still looking at sports and how they develop young people, sort of what you're getting out of all of these conversations.
Well,
I'm learning. I mean, that's why I keep doing it, Wally. I just want to learn and get better. And I think, coaching with a different team now, with, coaching with the guys is coaching with different different situation, it stimulates your growth, and that's what I'm interested in. I just, I always joke that I would retire from coaching when I knew everything, and I'll never know. I could be 150 years old, I'll still never know anything and know everything. And so I appreciate that opportunity. I mean, I really, I'm really lucky.
Well, I think we all are because we're still in the game in a different way. And I call it like we serve the good of the game. We want the absolute best for the people we work with. And the reward for us is it comes back tenfold.
Yeah, absolutely, Wally. Absolutely.
And
That's been great.
I'm sure you can tell many personal stories of players you've coached over the years that have come back to you and you don't even remember their names, maybe.
It's funny. I generally remember names. Yeah, I think I remember all their names. But what I forget is sort of the year of their graduation or how they overlapped with another player. If there's two players, I go, okay, you both played together for 2 years, was it? No, no, coach, we played together for 4 years. I go, oops. Sometimes you forget. You forget both with the guys and the girls actually. But they're always very helpful to remind me, remind me. So, no, it's good. You're right, Wally. I've got lots of great memories, and again, I know it's a bit cliche, but what you always remember is the relationships that you build, and I've been real fortunate to have built a lot of really super relationships. Every year we have an alumni event, at least one a year, for the girls and for the guys as well. And just so nice to see these people and what they're doing, and and they're on the guys' side, we didn't do it quite as much on the girls' side, but on the guys' side, anytime an alumnus is in the stands watching a game, we always bring them down and talk to the players, after the game, or even say a couple words before the game or whatever it is. And it's just remarkable how they reflect on their own career at McGill and how much they enjoyed it and how quickly it went, and the friends that they made. And wasn't about the games that they, again, being cliche, but it wasn't about the games they won or any of that. It was totally about, the relationship they built, the relationships that they built. And I'm in the same boat on that, for sure. I mean, we won a lot. It was great, but got the chance to coach a lot of really good people. That's what I remember.
Now, you've coached at the university level, and I speak for all coaches at all levels in all sports. When I say all levels, I'm talking about my high school coaching experiences.
Yeah.
And I've had so many students come up to me uh, or email me and complimenting what happened with them while I coached them. And there was one story in particular I was a young wrestler. And when you coach wrestling in high school, you're trying to look and recruit kids in the hallway that are small so you can fill weight classes so you might win some medals in the city competition. And there was a young boy, a little guy who I badgered. And eventually I got him to join the team and he hung in there for 3 years. Don't even remember his name, but here it is years later. I'm in Montreal coaching uh, the women's team from Calgary, and I get a phone call at my hotel, and it's this young former wrestler introducing himself to me and said, "Mr. Kozak, can I come to your game tonight? I'd like to meet you, and I haven't seen you. Coach me in wrestling." And so after the game, he told me this story. He met me. He was he had gone from being 105 pounds to now being 6'2" and about 200, uh, totally grown. He was working as a sound engineer for the Forum, for the Montreal Forum at the time. And he said, if it wasn't for you badgering me, I wouldn't have wrestled And if I hadn't wrestled, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, there you go.
So,
Yeah.
the for all the minor hockey coaches out there and high school coaches in particular, you're in an environment of influence that you can make a big difference at. And I think you can do that at any level.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree.
I think the foundation, Peter, for you and me and all of us on board and the Sharks in particular, who are lifelong learners, is the good of the game and the values and the lessons that the game teaches you. If you've played a team sport, you're going to be a hell of a good employee.
Yeah.
You're going to get a job. So,
I agree, Wally. I agree. So I'm gonna have to. I've only got a couple more minutes here. I apologize for that. I got to move on to. We played last night against Concordia at home. We lost 3-2. I thought Concordia played very well. We weren't as sharp as we could have been. I'm sure it boiled down to the coaching. So we've got a couple of meetings coming up. So hopefully I don't get fired. But we'll be good. Jordan, nice to see you. Tom, I didn't acknowledge you there on the. I see all these weights in your background there. That's a lot of plates you got going there. I like it. You're still working hard. That's a good thing. So, but I appreciate being here. If anybody has any last minute questions or anything, fire away. I appreciate Wally the invitation and getting the chance to talk a little bit about my story because it is a good story to be honest with you. And so if anybody has any questions, fire away.
Hi, my name's Jeff. I'm Taya Mafifi's dad. Hi,
Great.
Jordan. Jordan's coaching Taya right now, and Wally's our head super coach.
So I
Um,
understand.
you're cross-shopping all the goalies, and I just wanted to make the usual pitch that I think you've got a great person right in front of you. Her brother went to McGill. Her sister went to Concordia and played 5 years of varsity rugby. They couldn't quite win a championship. Um, they were good though. And Taya is not the most academic student compared to her four other siblings. She's got three who did partial IB and one who did full IB, but she's a bit dyslexic, so she's carded, but still has a 3.6 at the best school in public school in Calgary, Western Canada High School.
Beautiful.
She's a 2009, so you guys are building out your goalie roster for the future, and I'm just saying that she'd be great. I went to Ottawa U. Mom's a double physician in that she finished all her med school in France and then did it all again in Canada. And then
Yeah.
we were going to be a soccer family, but we switched to hockey. Now all seven of us play hockey.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And
Well,
we'd like
it's nice to meet you.
Yes, thanks, Peter. Get going. And Jordan and Wally will tell you more about her. And if you've spoken with Tay already, that's fantastic. You have her contact. Thanks,
Absolutely.
guys.
Absolutely.
I
Appreciate
just
it.
got a story about I asked the girls, what they wanted to do in their future. I'm coaching third, so I don't think they thought about it that much. So one girl says, well, first I want to be a pro hockey player, then I want to be a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. I don't know if she needs to go to McGill for that or not.
That's an interesting combination. Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
Jordan, you've just come on. I wonder if you have a question in the back of your mind that you could ask Peter, just so we can pick his brains again.
Yeah, sorry, Wally. It's only 2 days left in our semester right now, so I got running around in my day job here at our high school. So, but Peter, and I'm sorry if you've already talked about this in your story, but my question would be, obviously you spent a considerable amount of time building the program, the women's side at McGill. What's been the biggest shift in working on the men's side, and have there been any takeaways that any pieces that the female side prepared you better for, you feel, in working with the men?
Yeah, I mean, we did discuss this. I mean, kind of briefly, if you will. First of all, I'll allude to your second part of your question. Yeah, I mean, coaching in the female game prepared me. Coaching at any level prepared me. I spent 30 years coaching on the female side, and every experience I had there, prepared me, year in, year out, in terms of my coaching ability. So yes, it was huge. Um, Biggest difference is not a lot, to be honest with you. I coach the guys team, as I've said previously. I coach the guys team same way I coach the girls team. Biggest difference for me is I'm assistant coach now instead of being a head coach. So there are obviously some differences there, and which I really, at this stage of my career, I appreciate. But again, I said this previously, Jordan, but for me, it's not the difference between coaching guys and girls. I've always approached coaching as I coach them all individually, if you will, one at a time. Um, so I've never looked at the group as a group of guys or a group of girls. I've just looked at that group as a whole bunch of individuals who each one needs something, most likely needs something a little different. I've tried to figure out what that difference is to help them to achieve their goals and reach their potential. And I've never based it on gender. I've always based it on, what each individual needs or requires to be successful. I know that there are stereotypes out there. There are undoubtedly gender differences out there. I've just chosen to ignore them, if you will, and move forward. So that's really been my coaching fly. I think that that's important in coaching. And so, you coach a peewee team, you have a different approach with that team. You coach a college team, you have a different approach. You coach a pro team, you have a different approach. And I think that in order to be successful as a coach, you have to figure out what each team needs and what that group of individuals on that team needs. And that's what I've always tried to do. So, I mean, basically, that's kind of my coaching philosophy in a nutshell. I think a lot of people want to hear me say what the differences are between coaching men and coaching women, and I just don't really have a whole lot to comment on that. Now, in all fairness, too, moving from the women's side of McGill to the men's side of McGill, I mean, there's a lot of similarities. They're all academically oriented. They all want to do well in school. They all, they're dynamic young people, and not that McGill is a whole lot different from other schools, but I think that uh, there's a lot of similarities in terms of making that move, if you will. When I coached the PHF team, that was a little bit different, certainly. That in terms of the culture wasn't firmly established there. I had that group for 1 year or so, and they were women who had already played university or played elsewhere, so they brought um, you know. Different cultural experiences to the table. So that experience, that was more of a jump, if you will, going from the Martlets to the pro team than it was going from the Martlets to the men's team. Which sounds weird, eh? But that in fact is the case. So
No, thanks, Peter. That makes sense. And yeah, I appreciate you stressing the importance of coaching the individual rather
yeah,
than the
yeah,
gender.
yeah,
I found that myself a fair amount, that as long as you're treating them as humans and approaching them as humans. But
yeah,
it is also interesting what you're saying about the bringing an amalgamated culture together with the pro team, versus
yeah,
a culture
yeah.
that's been built over decades.
Yeah, that was a real good experience for me too. I mean, we didn't really talk about that, but that was a really good experience for me as well. In trying to, and it was kind of disappointing that I only had that group for a year, and then the league folded. It would have been great if I'd had them for a couple of years, to get the opportunity to, help create or be part of creating a culture, for that specific team, if you will. And anyway, I still learned a lot from that. And one of the things I'll say, Jordan, and this is, what Wally was kind of talking about before, that things have changed, is that and I think that that's an important part of it is coaching the individual now. That's probably changed a whole lot from our day when everything was kind of grouped together, if you will. You coached the whole group, and what was, the whole group, it was one recipe for the whole group. And I think that that's changed now, and that, with coaching, that we do try and look at the individuals and figure out what they need. So I personally think that's an important part that, your ability to build relationships with each individual, I think is really important. There's a buzzword, you probably heard it now. There's something called likability. And likability is people want to gravitate to other individuals who are like them, if you will, and who they feel comfortable with. And I think that that's become an important part of coaching. And I'm not talking about, rewarding players or sucking up to them or whatever it is for them to like you. But I think likability, a big part of likability is creating those relationships with the players, appropriate relationships with the players, I think is huge.
Yeah, that is a huge piece I find too. One of the interesting things with approaching them as individuals as well is these kids have all had individual skills coaches and that sort
Yeah.
of thing for so long that now I find that we are actually working with them as individuals, but also having to teach them how to play as a team.
Yeah,
And
exactly. And
it is a
that's,
team game. You're not an individual playing a team sport. You're
yeah.
you're not a pitcher in baseball or a
Yeah, yeah. And that was a big part of our previous conversation. Exactly that is that, and that's one of the things that Wally was saying is that, and I said it before, is, these kids are really good at deking cones, but you don't play against a cone.
yeah,
And, you got to get it in place, certainly. And Wally was saying the same thing is that, they have to have the ability to play the game. It's not just about the individual skill development, although that's part of it, but it has to be integrated into your ability to play the game as well. So it's
yeah.
huge. And you're coaching a younger group. I'm coaching an older group. So there are some differences there in terms of our approaches, and I get that. I understand that too.
This is be my last question for you, Peter. I know you got to go, but it just peaked in my mind with you saying about the cones and things. Um, what are you seeing for resiliency amongst these young men that you're working with? Like, is compared, and I know it's hard to compare across the genders and compare, but I'm thinking generationally over your experience as a coach, because what I'm seeing is, well, I see it in my day job in high school, that resiliency is becoming a commodity that uh, is of a low availability in many kids and that. But I was just wondering at that level, once you're getting to those young men have all played probably their full junior careers and
Yeah.
all of that. And so, what are you seeing in that piece?
Well, I think one of the things that happens. So I'll backtrack just a little bit. And again, I was asked like, what's the difference between, coaching the girls team and the guys team? And one of the things, again, it's not gender based, it's experience based. With the Martlets, we have players coming in who are 17, turning 18. With the Redbirds, we have players who are coming in. Most of them are 20 or 21 years of age. So there's a difference in terms of experience. The guys, by and large, have all played major junior hockey. So they've spent time in hotels, the bus, generally they've had a decent level of coaching, not always, but generally decent level of coaching. On the girls' side, the girls are younger. So there is a difference of experience. And you might say maturity, although it's not necessarily always the case with the guys, but there is a little bit of a difference there. And I should have mentioned that before. In terms of resiliency, one of the things that I think that happens is when I look at sport in general, but specifically in hockey, is that if a young guy or girl isn't getting the ice time that the parents feel that they deserve, then they move to a different organization or a different coach, or you deserve more. And I don't think that that necessarily helps in terms of resiliency. I don't think that your the ability to stick with it and work hard and earn what you feel that you would like to have, not necessarily deserve, but what you would like to have. I think that's an important part of resiliency. And I don't think in the hockey world, I can't comment overall. I mean, you could certainly comment because of your experience in coach in teaching and high school, but I don't think that that helps the development of the individual in terms of that moving around and finding the place that is advantageous to you, as opposed to sticking it out and working hard and earning that next level. Does that make sense? You know what I'm kind
Yeah.
of kind
Yeah.
of trying to get to now in terms of what I see. I really feel again that it comes down to each individual in terms of I've coached players who I feel are really resilient and really bounce back and really able to move forward, and the other players who aren't. And so is there less resiliency now? I think that you would have a better amongst the players. I'm not sure. I really don't know. You would probably have a better viewpoint of that. Like in the school setting, do you see the sort of similar kind of thing in the school setting or?
Yeah, well, I had a mentor colleague that I worked with that asked this question and said, "When did we stop preparing the child for the road ahead and started preparing the road for the child?"
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one.
So
Yeah,
instead of preparing these kids to meet challenges, giving them some confidence and abilities and skills to meet challenges ahead, and let them know that there is support should they need it,
yeah,
rather
yeah,
than just taking the challenges and pushing the challenges out of
yeah. I
their
would agree
way.
with that, 100%.
And
Like I think at hockey at the level that I'm at now, particularly in the guys game, with all these ability to transfer with impunity, uh, it's just crazy. Then somebody doesn't get the ice time, they're not on the power play, they're not getting 18 minutes a game, whatever it is, and they decide that, well, they're going to move on where the grass is greener. And again, I'm repeating myself, but again, instead of sticking it out and, earning that, and, that's what creates resiliency as far as I'm concerned. And I think, we make it too easy in some cases for players to be able to opt out and move on. So I think,
yeah.
it's probably the same thing in the school setting as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's the same. And I did have a post-secondary coach that was shared a story with me saying that, when I see that a player has three different helmet colors and three different hockey bags in three
Yeah.
different seasons,
Yeah.
they said, Even if they're a good player, why would I bring them into my program that I'm trying to build over time, especially now that there is a transfer process in
Yeah.
youth sport as well?"
Yeah. No, 100% on that. And again, we were talking about this earlier, like down in the NCAA. I mean, it's a real challenge in, basketball, football, hockey, the players just, like in that championship game, you had guys who had played for three different football teams. And like really, wow, that's incredible. It's so hard to build a culture in a program with, I think that Indiana had 37 transfer students, transfer players on the team. Yeah, maybe more. I don't know, Ray. It could be. And I know, a quarterback at Miami, like in his press conference, was asked about if he went to class on Friday. He goes, "Well, I don't go to class. I already graduated." Like, how does that fit? I'm watching that and I'm thinking, really? This is college sport, but anyway, it is what it is. But anyway, fellas, thank you very much. I appreciate the time. I really enjoy being here. I would love to jump on with the show. I really have a lot of respect for what you guys doing with the Sharks, and I was involved with it way back at Cadence, and every time I was out in Calgary, I really enjoyed that. And keep it going, keep on swimming, and I'll try and join on. My schedule's a bit tight, but I will try and join on from time to time. So really appreciate it. Wish you all lots of luck.
Thanks,
Peter,
Peter.
thank you
Thanks,
very
Peter.
much.
Look forward to meeting you.
Take care.
Bye.
Well, guys, a pretty amazing guy and a great session. Any afterthoughts? Peter Whitney, get your speaker going, Peter.
No, it's always nice to get different thoughts, different perspectives, and like everything that like you talked about too, Wally. Which we've talked about in the past is the development of the players as opposed to the one-on-five hockey that you see in youth groups now. That's the one of the biggest things I've seen for sure. That I'm watching teams and the kids have really good skill, but they don't know how to play the game of hockey. They don't know how to create a two-on-one. They don't understand about skating to space. Everything is dangle through and see how far you can get. So that part's interesting. And then the other collegiate piece about you pick a school and I really don't care where the school is. I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like I never tried to really convince a player, hey, you got to come play for me. You don't want to play there. That's one thing that I think you mentioned, and that was that particular coach used some severe negative recruiting, which my feeling is you never make yourself look good by trying to make someone else look bad. So I don't agree with that. I think there's a school for everyone, and when you recruit, you lay it out there. This is what we can offer. This is what we can do, and you make your choice based on the information that we give you, right? But I'm really anti trying to make yourself look good by making someone look bad in any situation, in life situation, but certainly in recruiting.
Good point, Peter. I think that's one of the key things with kids and their parents and trying to make decisions is um, if they're looking at the storied outcome achievements of the organization first, they've got to look at everything that might be contributing to that.
Yeah, and the other thing too, Wally, is anybody that's been involved, years in the corporate world or the business world, I guess if you want to word it that way, is you get to work with who you get to work with. You don't get to pick. That's one of the really great things about being a head coach of any athletic program. You get to pick the individual. So you, if you should only want people who want to be where you are. If you have to really convince somebody and try these other tactics to get them to come play for you, they're probably not going to stay. You're probably not going to enjoy it. It's one of the unique situations where you actually get to pick the people that you go to work with every day.
Tom, I don't know if you got your practice plan ready or not, but are you still there, Tom? Listen.
Yeah, I'm here.
What are your
Hear me?
thoughts, Tom? You've been around the horn more than any of us, including Peter. Uh, you've been there and coached every level like Peter, and here you are back in the trenches at U15, and we said an awful lot about the game and what we're trying to do for it. So, what are your thoughts, takeaways from today?
Well, I agree with Peter that there's no difference between coaching girls and guys. You got emotional guys, emotional girls, and ones that are dedicated, do everything, and on both sides, you're coaching hockey players. So that's one thing I agree with them. And it's kind of all about the process. You have to find the process at the maturity level of the play and skill level of the players that you're playing, that you're coaching. So it's all the process, and it's all the people coaching. Every group is different. Every person's different, and you know. And if they're doing something all the time, don't write them off and say, "Oh, that girl doesn't see the ice, so I'm not going to take her because I've seen that happen." Well, teach her how to see the ice. You know, it's like you teach a skills. So you have to identify what people need and we'll go from there. So I really agree with basically everything Peter said.
Tom, one of the things that I know of watching you draft over the years at the U15 level, you really look at the character of the kids, which are a reflection of their families, that they're going to be respectful, they're going to come in and work for you and be on pulling a rope the same way as you. Can you talk to that, the importance of coaches selecting players, and but you are also a guy who you'll take that kid who's on the fence about just maturing yet and try to get them to toe the line. Can you comment a bit about that recruiting line and selection so that anybody listening can appreciate the difficult task coaches face? Because in order to be influenced, you have to respect the teacher.
Well, I think it depends what level you're doing, right? Like at this particular level I'm coaching, there's about 150 players trying out for 3 teams. You don't really know them. You'll hear things about people, or if you hear that possible the coach or their parents are being in the rear, you might avoid them. But I know this year one of our things that we were looking for is watching the player's head. So we're talking about 1-on-5 players. The player gets the puck and never looks left or right. It's difficult to coach them because we're doing skill stuff, 1-on-5 player stuff. So we tried to look for players that had some game intelligence. It's hard. You're just watching these people you really don't know. Like I know I talked to you about some of them to a little bit of heads up about players could be. But then at college, so different because you get a chance to meet the players, you go watch them, you talk to them, find out, you talk to some coaches that had them before. It's a totally different thing. But my last year at college, it was totally blind and it was really difficult because I lost about 15 of my players because of COVID. We got shut down and I had my best players coming back. We could have won the league. I brought in 9 really good players and we practiced. We couldn't even go. The girls never even saw the inside of the rink. Everything online, and we practiced at a different rink, outdoor stuff at a different location. And then they shut us down at the end of October, and only about 4 of my recruits came back because they didn't feel part of anything. And most of my veteran players graduated because they taking 3-year programs a lot. So I got 15 players that I'd only seen 2 of them play on a video because they're from northern BC and the AAA girls were playing the AAA Bantam boys. I brought in this really good forward and the goaltender. And and I told you the story the goalie had a baby at the end of September. So this really great goaltender was no longer playing for us. And so I ended up bringing in, I talked to coaches a little bit, but about the players and they want their graduates to be playing, and a lot of them built up their players. I had 5 of the players couldn't play that well. So basically, it was really starting a brand new team. So that if you can't meet the players, if you can't watch them play, it's really difficult. Where the year before COVID, I had seen those play and met them, and so that was a fish. The more information you get, the better for sure.
Well, I'm Ray. I'm curious a bit about just about your thoughts of all the discussions we've had. I know we're going to have you on as a guest down the road to speak about your new book and your past books because the topic of being the best you can be and performance, peak performance, uh, that's what we want. We want everybody to be their best, and I think we're on the same page with the values being the driver or the foundation of that. But any comments on Peter and anything else the coaches have said?
Thank you, Wally, for inviting me. I always enjoy being in the circle. It's not often because I'm quite busy still at 78 with my business and coaching people even in Dubai. But I'd like to share a couple of reflections on what Peter was saying. And one is I'll tell a story. Uh, Before Christmas, I attended the 55th year reunion of my fellow football players at the University of Ottawa. We kind of alluded to the fact that, it's not the wins, not the losses, it's not the blood, sweat, and tears. It's the relationships. And, like we meet every year, once a year, and it's almost like we never left when we're together. Like we relive this bond. And so, as a performance coach, like I want to point out that I'm not hooked to any program. So, I know about hockey. I played it, and I've been involved with hockey teams, as Wally can attest. But I've been in football, I've been in soccer, basketball, even swimming. And I think that this business of taking care of the individual is paramount. Uh, and so, as a coach, you have two big responsibilities. One is to care for the individual, and to create an environment where all of these individuals, and like if we take a football team, you've got like 90 players, all feel like they belong. And I am privileged to have been involved with teams. As you know, Wally, we won the championship in 2000 at the University of Ottawa. And, like there are people from that team that are all over the place in the States, even in Europe. And when we connect, it's like I heard Peter and I think uh, Jeff and maybe Jordan also mentioned it. It's the legacy, like the experience that that bunch of guys or that bunch of girls, because I've worked with women hockey also at the University of Ottawa. Uh, like I still communicate with a number of them, and you may remember Wally, Melanie Bouchard, uh, and a number of other girls during that time who are now professionals in their own field and like tremendously benefit from the legacy that we gave them as human beings, uh, growing their potential and becoming the person that they could be.
Well said, Ray. Well said. Uh, Jeff, I don't know if you're still listening as a parent, and you've listened to all of us old codgers relive our pasts and talk about them. Jeff,
Still here.
okay, what are your thoughts, Jeff? Listen to the whole thing.
Uh, Honored to be here. Honored to have a daughter who wants to play collegiate and has even mentioned she wants to play Team Canada and PWHL. She's a perfect fit for any of you guys' teams. I think Jordan will speak to that, and same with you, Wally. And for her to go away to university in Canada rather than going to an NCAA school works better for us as a biracial couple. I'm Chinese, mom's Caribbean French, and the current Trump situation down there, I think NCAA would be kind of off the table for Taya, and that's great. She does have the French link, which is great. If she doesn't play Team Canada, she's also French, so maybe she'll play Team France or play some pro hockey in France.
Je suis francophone, Jeff.
Yeah. So thanks for bringing me in, Wally, and thanks, Jordan, for coming out and vouching for Taya.
Well, Jeff, thanks for joining us. We do this every Thursday because we got nothing else to do.
Yeah, you guys are so busy. It's crazy.
And like I keep saying, well, I can't believe Tom. He's still coaching, and he's on this, and he skates twice a week, plays hockey twice a week. So amazing guy, and I really think, I appreciate the coaches so much because they're the ones that are learning and trying to be the best they can be, and people that join our group are lifelong learners. They offer things, but they also pick up points that they might take back and that resonate with them that they'll apply that'll make whatever they do better. And I think we know we're here for the one reason, and I call it the good of the game, but the only people that matter, the people that matter the most in the process are your children, our youth. They're so innocent. They're so subject to our influence and direction. We want to make sure we teach them values that will carry through for them for the rest of their life. Sports does that properly done, properly run, properly coached, administrated. And I think, as Peter Smith alluded to, the National Collegiate Championship and the transfer rule, it's lost, the student athlete has lost their sense of value. So I guess we just remind everybody, what are we here for? We're here for the young people to be the best they can be, to grow, to learn, to get better at hockey players, achieve their dream goals. But if they don't, they're sure doing the right things to become the best people they can be. So on that note, I'm going to shut down the tonight's session. Another great one. And Ray, I'm sure glad you jumped in. Peter Whitney, thanks for joining. Tom and Jeff, thank you very much for joining. And we'll see you in the rink.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Take care.